Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda.
And we're your hosts.
We're a traveling couple and digital nomads taking you on our adventures as we explore locations, destinations, and careers.
Enjoy the show. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The World Wanderers. As always, thank you so much for taking the ear space to listen to us. And we are excited to dive into our last episode that we're going to do in this Japan series, talking about...
Tokyo,
yeah. We are wrapping things up. We've done a little bit of stuff about Tokyo, lots of stuff about Japan on the podcast. And so we're going to change the style. And this time we're going to be talking about 10 awesome things to do in Tokyo that we have done in one of our 2 trips there. Tokyo is one of these cities where there's so much cool, awesome stuff. It can be kind of like overwhelming actually to figure out like what should I do with my limited time there. So we're going to try to tell you based off the couple weeks we've spent in Tokyo what our favorite things are. These would be the things that would be at the top of our list for giving recommendations to people if you said, hey, I'm going to Tokyo for a bit. So yeah, do you want to just get started or do you have any other pre-thoughts?
Yeah, I think I just want to preface it with the fact that Tokyo is one of the largest cities in the entire world, and there are so many things that you can do in Tokyo. So I think not just taking this list or any list just as is, make sure you go do research based on your likes, your dislikes, what you're really interested in. Because I think one of the amazing things about going to a city that's so big is that there really is something for everyone. So if you're into anime, there's, the whole anime area of the city. If you're into gardens, there's like a bazillion gardens you could go to. If you're into Buddhist culture, you could certainly find that. If you're into nightlife, there's nightlife in many different ways in Tokyo. So I think that just kind of doing your research is what I preface. And I would also just say that a reminder that this isn't like every single thing you can do in Tokyo, but rather like you said, Ryan, it's us kind of looking at a compilation of what we've done in our time that we've spent in Tokyo, which is, a couple of weeks now at this point, because we bookended both of our trips with Tokyo, like started and finished both of our Japan trips with Tokyo, and just wanted to kind of share sort of our like top list of fun things to do there.
Yeah, I think one other kind of just travel philosophy thought too is some of these like world-class cities, Tokyo, Paris, London, you can get kind of wrapped up in like, oh, I've got 5 days here. And so I've planned it out. I'm doing this. And you end up spending like huge chunks of your day on the subway, going between place to place. And Tokyo is one of those cities that just kind of like randomly wandering around is one of the coolest things you do. So definitely encourage if you're planning a trip there to make sure you go see some of the cool stuff that we're going to talk about, but also just give yourself some time to just not have a destination in mind and just kind of wander around some of the beautiful areas of the city.
Yeah, or have a destination and wander kind of a little further away from that. And I think another great thing about Japan is because it's so safe is like you can literally turn down these little back alleys and find these really incredible restaurants and bars and shops and stuff like that. And you don't have to stress the way you do in many other places in the world that like, oh, I just got myself in a really unsafe situation. Of course, still make sure you're taking safety precautions as with anywhere. But I do feel like one of the beautiful things about Japan and Tokyo in specific is that like the alleys are some of the most magical places there.
For sure. So let's dive in. We're not going to go in any specific order. This isn't a 1 to 10 ranking. But the first thing that comes to mind for us is the Tokyo Skytree. We stayed nearby it actually the first time in Tokyo on our first trip, and then the first time right when we got to Tokyo on this last trip, we then came back and stayed in a different area. But 2 times we've stayed relatively close to the Skytree. It's a little bit out of the center, but it gives you some cool access to lots of stuff. Great transportation hub. And the Skytree itself is a really cool, really tall building.
Yeah, great description.
It's big.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah, this is a really great area because it is right by the Sumida River Walk, which is definitely something that when you're in the Skytree area, I would say definitely check out. But one of the reasons we like this area, and especially for accommodation, is there's many hotels around here because it's kind of a main area. And then the Skytree itself is a really big building, but it's also got kind of like a big shopping center there. So there's a grocery store there. There's, of course, a subway station there. There's many, many restaurants that you can go there. We've eaten at a couple of them. There's a Kura Sushi, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but a really kind of, I guess, nice, famous automatic conveyor belt sushi restaurant, I guess you could say. I'm not exactly sure exactly what you would call that, but basically you go and order from an iPad, which is an awesome experience. And then, many other restaurants. We also did a Din Tai Fung while we were over there, which is a famous Taiwanese food/dumpling spot. Cherry blossoms all along the Riverwalk, which is really nice and just in that area. So there's a lot of stuff kind of happening there, which is one of the reasons that we really like that area. And then on this last trip, we actually went up the Skytree, and it's really reasonably priced to go up. You can go up and you get an amazing view of the city. And I think with a city like Tokyo, it's really cool to get an aerial view because you really see just like how big it is when you do that.
Yeah, going up was really cool. Just the scale of the city is remarkable. The other cool thing with the Skytree, we went up during the day. I think going up at night would be really cool as well. But then also just being kind of in that zone at night, they light it up with colors to the whole thing. We have some cool photos from like the first time we went when it was like a rainy evening, and the Skytree was lit up. So that was really cool. So yeah, that's the first one on the list. Got to make sure you get like at least a year or go up the Skytree.
For sure. And then if you're nearby, like I said, walking the Sumida Riverwalk is really nice. And then you can actually walk kind of across the river to, it looks like Asakusa, but I think it's Asuksa. And over there they have the Senjoji Temple, which is the oldest temple in all of Tokyo. So I feel like that's definitely something to go check out also. And that area has a lot of izakayas and little restaurants, cute little night bars that you can go to and stuff. So I feel like while you subway over to the Skytree area, do the Skytree, go up it, walk along the Sumida River walk, cross the river and go into Asuksa, and then you can kind of check out some of that area too. So just wanted to give something that's kind of in that area that I feel like isn't in our top 10 list, but is like, we're in the area, let's go do this because this is pretty awesome too.
Yeah, that's a really cool like afternoon to evening thing to do, kind of whichever way you take it. And then one thing we did that I found kind of nifty near the Skytree, there's this place called Penny Lane, a cafe, like a Beatles themed cafe with tons of good pastries. So if you're in that neighborhood looking for something to eat, that was really cool as well. Yeah,
I feel like it's actually kind of a sort of famous spot, and we kind of just stumbled upon it. And I think that if there's lots of people who like go to that area for it, but yeah, great coffee, great pastries, would definitely recommend checking that out in that area.
Yeah, and also one last thing I'll recommend here is there's a place called Unlimited Coffee, relatively close as well. That was like my favorite cafe we went to in all of Japan.
Yeah, lots of good stuff in the area, which is, I think if we went back to Tokyo, I would consider staying somewhere else just because like exploring more of Tokyo is really great. But I think staying in the Skytree area is definitely like kind of top of my list for areas to stay.
Yeah, and maybe we can move from one big building to another big building. The Tokyo Tower is one of like the famous iconic things you see with Tokyo. I have said that it kind of looks like the Eiffel Tower, just orange.
I think it's red, isn't it?
No, it's like orange.
Okay. It does kind of have an Eiffel Tower sort of vibe. I think it's not as big as the Eiffel Tower, and yeah, it's colorful. But this is definitely a famous kind of popular thing to visit in Tokyo. It's a great area. There's lots of stuff around there to explore also. And yeah, I think just like an iconic thing to see, which is cool.
Yeah, and we went to Tokyo Tower on our first trip to Japan. I remember like seeing lots of cherry blossoms around, getting some cool photos. I think in the battle of the two tall buildings, I prefer going to Skytree and checking that out. But Tokyo Tower is definitely worth exploring as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the next thing on the list, I put kind of like my favorite park that we visited, but I actually want to change this to explore a park in Tokyo. If you only have a couple of days, I would just choose one park that's kind of close to explore. But one of the things that's really great about Tokyo is that they have a number of parks. So a couple of the ones that we really liked are Yoyogi Park, as well as Ueno Park. And then Chiyoda City has like a huge park with the Imperial Palace, so that could definitely be one to check out. And then the Shinjuku Goyen National Garden, it's in like a huge park, and that's like a super famous garden to go check out. Yoyogi Park kind of stands out as my favorite because this was like the first place we ever explored in Tokyo. And we took the like subway over to Harajuku and walked into Yoyogi, and the cherry blossoms were in bloom, and everyone was out doing sakura season, which is like all the locals go out with their picnic blankets and their picnics and their group of friends, and they go and they have picnics under the cherry blossoms. And we went to Yoyogi and we got to experience that, and it was kind of our first introduction to Tokyo and Japan as a whole. And so I feel like I have really fond memories there, and I feel like it's just a really amazing park. So I feel like that's kind of top of my list, but yeah, I would say like any of those other ones would also be great. Like Ueno Park is really nice, and being able to explore some of the gardens and stuff can also be really great.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things of just like picking a park, grabbing some snacks, going and just like spending an afternoon lying on the grass. Is a really cool, fun thing to do, especially if you got kids. That was like one of my like standout memories. There's a couple other things on this list that you can kind of combine into. Like I know we did Omotesando into Hirajuku and then to the park that is right beside Yoyogi, and that was a really cool, fun kind of like half a day thing to do. So about definitely getting to a park, just kind of chilling, and especially if you're there during cherry blossom season, going, because that's kind of like the big event for Japanese people is like get your friends together, get out to the park, drink, have fun, have food.
Pack all your garbage out.
Yeah, and pack all your garbage out. But like it's like being at like a music festival in some of the more popular parks.
Yeah, Yoyogi would definitely be one of those. And I feel like it's perfect to just kind of, the next thing that was on the list was Omotesanto Hills and to Harajuku, or you could do it the other way around. So basically, if you look on a map, you could either take the subway to Omotesanto, or you could do it to Harajuku. But the way that we have done it is going Omotesanto Hills. You walk along the strip, and basically like this road it's sort of like the Champs-Élysées of, I'm probably saying that super wrong because I don't speak any French, but it's like that of Tokyo. So kind of a more like, they've got like Louis Vuitton and Gucci and all of these like luxury brands and stuff like that. That's not our thing at all. But I think one of the things that's really nice is just seeing this kind of really like luxury area of Tokyo. It's always packed. There's a ton of people. It's very quiet. I think in one of our like early Tokyo episodes that we did when we went to Tokyo or to Japan last time, we actually did like a recording of the street, and it's just incredible when you see how busy it is to see how quiet it is. So this is just like a fun shopping street, so you can walk from one end to the other, and then you kind of get to like the other end that's closer to the park, and Harajuku's there, and Harajuku is like a totally different vibe from Omotesanto Hills, which I feel like is why I think it's fun to go from one to the other. But Harajuku has a really famous street that's called Takeshita, and it's known for its like food and like clothing. I think vintage clothing is kind of popular there. Just a lot of shops. There's like a bazillion people. Just prepare yourself for that. But you can basically go from like, hey, I could get like a Louis Vuitton purse to, hey, I'm going to get like a potato.
And a tattoo.
A potato tornado, a tattoo, and some like vintage clothes. And then you kind of cross the street and go behind the Harajuku station, and you're in Yoyogi Park, which has the Meiji Shrine, and a lot of beautiful things are within that park as well. So I think that area is just like a really cool area to spend a bit of time in.
For sure. And one other thing that is in that area that we did actually the first time we went to Japan and the second time, there's a restaurant called Guzman y Gomez, and it's very Chipotle style. It's actually a chain in a few different cities in Asia. But if you're a kind of Tex-Mex or a Chipotle lover and you have a hankering for that type of food, that's a good place to go for lunch. And if you can meet that.
Yeah, like we come from Mexico, go to Japan, get tired of Japanese food, and eat Chipotle-esque Mexican while in Japan.
To be fair, we were there almost a month, and so that was like towards the end of the trip.
Yes, that's true. And the first time we were there, we had been in Asia for like 7 months at that point, 6.5 months. So we were like definitely looking for other types of food. And I think one thing about Japan is that Japan does everything well. And so if you're going to eat Mexican food in Asia, it should be in Japan, I feel like.
Yeah, and so next thing on the list, we'll go to Shibuya Crossing. If you've seen like anyone make a video about Japan, you've probably seen the crazy busy people, pedestrians crossing in like 6 different directions. That's Shibuya. It is a really cool place. It can be kind of hard. Like you want to go kind of midday to see like when it's actually at its fullest with people. There's a Starbucks is kind of pretty well known because you get a good view of the place. And then this time we actually discovered the train station on the other side. When you're walking between the metro and one of the other lines, there's a really nice like overtop view of the crossing that you can check stuff out from as well.
Yeah, I would say the only downside of that is that they've got these like stupid crisscross lines on the window.
That's to stop birds from flying in.
Okay. Sorry. Selfishly want to get an Instagram video and here they are trying to keep birds alive. My bad. But yeah, so anyways, they've got those. So it kind of wrecks your video a little bit, but
yeah, it's good to observing, but not the best photo location.
yeah, I'm sure there's other places too, like other stores and stuff you can go into because the crossing's so big. But I feel like it's really cool to see the crossing from above. And you can do this like whichever way works best for you. So maybe you go to Shibuya Station and you go see, you watch it, maybe you make a little video and then go out and actually like cross it. I feel like it's really cool to be a part of the crossing because while it feels busy, it doesn't feel as crazy when you're kind of just one human crossing it as it looks from above. So I feel like it is really cool to get both those experiences. And then Shibuya is a really like cool area. There's lots to do there. There's great restaurants. There's a lot of like ramen there. So I definitely say like go there and experience the area outside of just the crossing too.
Yeah, and the next thing on the list is the Tsukiji fish market, which good chance I mispronounced. This is like the famous sushi auction fish market. And it's kind of like 2 different experiences here. When you read about it, there's like the go super early in the morning, get the reservation, watch the tuna auction. And there's also just kind of going and exploring the area because around the fish market, there's actually people selling sushi, people selling all types of food, all types of products. And you kind of go just have a cool morning experience without actually waking up at like 4 a.m. to watch the auction.
Yeah, for sure. And this has changed a little bit from the first time that we went to the second time that we went. And now you really do need a reservation. Before it was just first come, first serve. They've actually moved the tuna auction to a different market. It's kind of like an outer market. And so if you're planning to do that, I would maybe recommend booking a tour. It seems like there's lots of tour options and they can kind of facilitate getting everything set up for you. But I think this is an excellent thing to do when you first arrive in Japan, especially if you're coming from North America and you've got a lot of jet lag. You'll probably be up really early. So this was actually one of the first things we did because we were up at like a little before 5. I think it was like 4:50 in the morning. Lou opened her eyes. She was ready to go. We're like, okay, what can you do at 5 a.m. in Tokyo? Perfect. Let's go to the fish market. And then it was funny because I was waiting in line for some of the fresh tuna at the market so that we could have like a tuna nigiri breakfast. And I started chatting with these Americans and they were like, oh, we arrived yesterday, like woke up really early, thought this was like the perfect thing to do with our jet lag. And I was like, oh yeah, us too. So I think that there's a lot of people who kind of are like, sweet, I'm not adjusted to the time, going early is better. You get a lot of the more fresh fish products and stuff like that. So even if you're not wanting to wake up super early, like Ryan said, for the experience of the auction, I think it's still like a really amazing thing to do. Go get some tuna belly. We've had barbecued eel there, which was really good. We got some of the like egg sushi. What else did we get? Tea, coffee.
I think we said, yeah, like you said, unagi. I got a good coffee. We had something else for sure that's escaping my mind, but you can basically find it all. Like I think there's even some noodle restaurants there, tons of different sushi spots. You can find all the Japanese food in that area. A lot of it really good.
There's a lot of products too.
Yeah,
like
and you can kind of tell too, like some places as you walk in, it's like 7 a.m. and places already have lines. Like you can tell kind of just by the vibe of like what's really good or not. It's some really good green tea. And then, yeah, people selling knives. So cool spot. And then
there's also other things other than knives. Like there's knives. We got chopsticks. You can get we got some nice bowls.
Nunchucks.
I didn't see any nunchucks, but maybe wouldn't put it past the market. And then the first time we were there, I think I remember that's like where I found good matcha. Like, I think it's just one of those markets that's kind of got a little bit of everything. You can even get like fancy cantaloupes there that cost like $1 bazillion. Some of the nice strawberries. They do these like pale strawberries, which seem to be like a delicacy in Japan. You can get some of those. So I feel like it's kind of fun because while you're going for the fish and that's like, the thing that's famous, you can also just try a bunch of other things. You can buy a bunch of other things. So a great place to just go and get some of maybe the like souvenir stuff that you want for your friends and family or for yourself.
Yeah, and it's kind of in a bit of an awkward area in terms of like accessing it via the train from like the more popular areas to stay. And so we ended up kind of going into like the Ginza neighborhood, which Ginza is kind of famous for being like high-end fashion, kind of like a Monte Santo in that regard. I feel like we haven't like done Ginza, but we've like walked through. So that could be something you could combine together because there's lots of cool stuff over there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that would be something you would do kind of after, because especially if you're going to the fish market early. I think that's why Ginza didn't seem like that exciting for us because, we did the fish market for a bit. Lou was getting tired. We needed to get her home for a nap. So I think, it's like 8 a.m. and we're leaving and things are still not open, right? Because it's just not what time things open in that district. But yeah, really cool area to explore. And then the next thing on the list is going to a baseball game at the Tokyo Dome. The first time we went to Japan, we went to a baseball game in Hiroshima, and that was amazing. And this time we went and saw the Tokyo Giants play. They're one of the most like famous and popular teams in all of Japan at the Tokyo Dome, which is an incredible, incredible facility. Really, really cool space. And I think because baseball is so popular in Japan, it's a really, really fun thing to do while you're there.
Yeah. And this would probably extend out if you're doing a bigger Japan trip. I think like from our experience in talking to people, Hiroshima, the Hanshin Tigers who are based out of Osaka, and then the Giants who are based out of Tokyo are like probably like the 3 top places to go check out a baseball game. But there's other teams in Tokyo, there's other teams in lots of cities, but something really cool and fun to do. And it's Tokyo Dome's kind of like Yankee Stadium for Japan. So another cool like place to go and see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing that's on the list is, I'm going to try not to butcher this, but the Chidori Yafuchi moat. We'll write it out on the show notes so that you guys can see it. But this is really famous for cherry blossoms. It's kind of funny if you do any research on Tokyo, this will often be like a photo that's displayed. So it's like this big moat. It's got the trees on both sides. It's absolutely stunning in cherry blossom season. So I definitely add that to your list. But this area is really nice, even if the cherry blossoms aren't blooming. Obviously, the trees are still there. They just have green leaves. But just like a stunning area of the city to go check out. And it's on the north side of Chiyoda City. And so this is a great place to also explore like that park, the Imperial Palace. There's lots of stuff that's going on there. So you can go from Tokyo Station, go through Chiyoda City, Imperial Palace, all of the different like parks and gardens that are there, or go right over to Chidori Gafuchi and just like see the moat on that side. So lots of different like things that you can do within that area. There's also a couple of gardens, national gardens in there, but Chidori Gafuchi.
Yeah, I remember distinctly we were there right in the heart of cherry blossoms the very first time we went. And this was the place that felt like the most mosh pity. There was just a ton of people there trying to get the good views of the blossoms at the moat.
Yeah, I think because it's like so iconic. Like it's kind of like when people go to Banff, what they think of with Banff is like Moraine Lake. It's like they've all seen that exact same photo. And I feel like one of the photos you always see is of this moat. And so I feel like people are like, oh my God, like this is the photo. And then everyone's like standing on like the bridge trying to take the photo. But it is really beautiful. I think that's why it's on the list, and especially during cherry blossom season. And yeah, like I said, there's lots of different things that you can do around that area too.
Yeah, one of the things that is on this list that is, I feel like you do it once and probably don't go back, but is like a very strange, interesting Japanese experience, is going to a maid cafe, specifically in Akihabara, which is kind of like the more like techie, lots of like cool anime stuff area. Maid cafes we talked about on like our previous episode back in the day about Japan, but it's a strange, interesting place.
Yeah, I think it's a once in a lifetime type of experience. I think it's an interesting experience to have and shows you kind of a different part of Japanese culture. But I think Akihabara in general is really interesting. We're not like super into anime or that side of Japanese culture, but I think still going to this area is pretty neat because like you go there and you walk out of the train station, it's like the buildings are more colorful. It's like things are painted differently. Like it's just a totally different world. It's a different vibe within the city of Tokyo. And then, yeah, the maid cafes are everywhere. And just to give you guys a quick recap, in case you didn't listen to that episode from, 6 years ago, or it's been a while, is like basically you go there and these like young Japanese girls are dressed up like maids and they want to play like fun games with you. So you like order a matcha latte, for example, and they're like, oh, what do you want on your matcha latte? Like, oh, you want kitty? Okay, we make kitty. And so they like draw a kitty on it. And then you play a little game to like get your latte or whatever. And so they'll be like, what do you want to play? Okay, you don't know? Let's like play this game. Let's sing this song. It was kind of an uncomfortable experience for us, which is like interesting that it made the list. But I feel like it's kind of also iconic and like I said, once in a lifetime. So something definitely to consider and check out.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing we kind of put in the big top 10, which we'll fold a couple things into, is exploring neighborhoods in Tokyo. Tokyo is, almost the size of a country, probably is bigger than Singapore, and in terms of both people and geographic space. And so there's so much cool, interesting stuff to do, and there's lots of really cool, distinct, interesting neighborhoods. A couple of the ones that like stand out for us are Shimakitazawa, which is got lots of bars, nightlife, good food, and then lots of vintage shopping. Mm-hmm. And then another one that we didn't go to the first time but went to this time is Nakameguro, which specifically has this really beautiful river, which would be incredible in cherry blossom season. Lots of cool shops. Seems kind of like a place that is like a little bit higher end, but lots of cool shops, restaurants, fashion type of stuff. And there is where the Starbucks Reserve Roastery is, which Starbucks Reserve Roastery, I think there's like one in Shanghai, one in Milan, one in Chicago. There's a couple around the world. There are these like next level crazy cafes with bars and merch and fancy bakeries and all this stuff.
I mean, let's just like talk people through this Reserve Roastery for a second. If you go like during the day, first of all, you're going to wait. Like they have a whole, like you get a ticket, you wait, you could wait like upwards of a couple hours to get in. Because we have a baby that wakes up really early, we got up and did like a morning adventure there because we happened to be staying pretty close. And we were able to get in right away. But you walk in, they've got a whole merch section. They've got this like incredible like roastery facility right there. They've got like the kind of coffee bar with some of the food. So you can order your coffees there. You can get any type of coffee you want. They've got other different areas with different foods. So you can go more to like, hey, here's the pastries with your coffee. Here's like the cooked food over here. Then the second level where we went up and ate was actually like a tea bar. So if you wanted tea, you could go actually get your tea up there. And then the next level was a like rooftop with another coffee bar and a whole outside patio area. So yeah, I think 3 or 4 levels of this place. Just super nice facility. Like coffee was insanely good. And it was actually really cool because the coffee I got came from a hacienda that's out of San Jose, Costa Rica, which we actually stopped at when we were in Costa Rica a couple of years ago. So I was like, oh, this kind of like comes for full circle in a way that I'm like getting coffee from another kind of big roastery, Starbucks roastery that we've been to.
Yeah, and I think this would fit really well in the like go early on in your trip while you have jet lag and are waking up super early. I think we got there like 8 a.m., so not even like terribly early.
Yeah, I think it opens at like 7 or 7:30. So we
walked in, there was no wait when we got there. The first time we walked by, it was in the afternoon, and there looked like they were no longer giving out tickets for the day.
Which is crazy because we were there at like 3.
It's open late. But yeah, I think the thing I would do, go early in the morning, get a coffee, sit on the patio, especially if you were there during cherry blossom season, then it would be like next level, beautiful. But just sitting on the patio overlooking that area is amazing.
Also in that area is the original Tsutaya books.
Yeah, like the flagship stores. So one of the things we had on the list was like, go to a great bookstore. One of my favorite things about Japan is like just the pens and the stationery. And so Tsutaya Books is like kind of one of the more famous chains, maybe like they're Barnes and Noble, but like significantly nicer. And so the flagship store is in the Nakameguro area. It's called like the Tea Site. They've got a number of nice locations all over Tokyo, but there specifically is like 3 big buildings. There's clothes, there's pens, there's kids' toys, there's like artistic books, there's record players. Like it's a really cool spot. But just in general, while you're in Tokyo, if you like are a reader, if you love books, there's some really cool both used and new bookstores. And then definitely checking out some like Japanese stationery is a top thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I mean, Shinjuku is like a pretty big area, but I would say Shinjuku is definitely worth checking out. And then I mentioned Ueno Park before, but Ueno is also like a cool area. And I feel like I just want to give an example of like, you know, we have this like big list, and you could also look up a million lists online and make your like, these are the must see do things in Tokyo. But we went to Ueno Park with some friends, and we just started walking around. We looked up like what was in the area, and we found this like really cool area that has these like old kind of pre-war houses that have been preserved. And now one of them is a bar, one of them is a coffee shop, one of them is like a little store, one of them is a bakery. And you go and you can see these like older houses. And it's just kind of like you are walking through this residential area, and then you like turn a corner, and then there's this kind of cool little like preserved touristic site that has been like turned into something kind of modern and interesting. And, you know, that's not on a lot of the like top 10, 20, 30, even maybe 50 things to do in Tokyo, but it's an example of how you go to these like smaller areas and you just start walking around or Googling like what's near me that's interesting, and you can find like really amazing, interesting things to do in the city.
Yeah, 100%.
Amazing. And so that kind of covers the like top 10 list that we put together. A couple of general things that we would definitely recommend that you do in Tokyo that we've done in Tokyo as well as in other cities. So if you're not going to Tokyo or you don't have enough time, you could certainly do these other places. But I think they're like must-dos for Japan. Doing, like I said before, some sort of like conveyor belt or sort of automatic sushi is really cool. Kura is a really popular brand that's in all major cities. So we went to a Kura in Tokyo. There's one right by the Skytree. And then we also went in Osaka, and there's a number of them kind of like in the downtown area of Osaka as well. But basically it's like you go in, and there are people who work there, but you go in, you select how many people you want at a table. It gives you like a little ticket number. The ticket numbers come up on the board to call you and tell you what table you go to when it's ready. You go to your table, you use an iPad to do your ordering. And basically every like table or station is connected to this like conveyor belt. So sushi will come around that you can pull off like traditional conveyor belt, like we know of North America, but then it's like you can also order stuff and it like zooms out to your station. So you can order beer, zooms out, stops, you take it, and then like the plate zooms away. And basically you just put your plates as you finish into this like little dish tray that's right by your table or your station, and it just counts them on the iPad. And when you're finished, you hit like checkout, and it like has your number for your table that you get right from the beginning, and you go and you like pay at a machine. So it's just like a really cool experience to have. There are other brands that do it, but I think Kura is kind of like one of the most famous.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 or 3 national chains, and then there's some like smaller one-offs that do it, but like Kura is really cool. And just like, it's not the best sushi in Japan, but it's really, really solid. It's probably like as good as the best sushi in most Mexican cities, or better, probably better. Really affordable. If you go at the right time, you don't usually have to wait too long. If you go at peak hours, sometimes you have to wait. But just a really cool experience to have that kind of thing. You like press like, I want a beer, and the beer comes zooming out, or like, I want fatty tuna, which comes to your table. So.
It'll tell you to like average wait time for your stuff. It'll be like 4 minutes. And so, you know, like, okay, I have to wait like 4 minutes for my sushi to come out. Yeah, it's amazing. I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah. And another thing, there's so many cool arcades in lots of different Japanese cities. I know Osaka's like really big for this, but lots of cool arcades in Tokyo as well. Like going to a Japanese arcade, I think is just, it's maybe something that existed in like Canada and the States, like in like the 80s or the 70s or something, but like big multi-floors, different games, music things, drumming, photo booths, claw games is like, that's like something you've got to do in Japan. And so if you're only in Tokyo, definitely finding a cool arcade to go to and explore.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's a couple other like popular things to do in Tokyo that sound really awesome that we haven't done. So we just kind of wanted to add those as a little caveat. So going to see sumo wrestling is definitely one. I think there's like arenas you can go to where you can buy tickets and see the sumo wrestlers like actually kind of wrestle and perform. But then there's something else you can do where you can go see them practice. You can go early mornings and you just observe. We tried really hard to do this the first time we were in Tokyo, but just the days didn't line up. You have to call like the day before and see if they're practicing, and if they're practicing, if they're inviting like people to come watch. And every time it was just like, no, no, no. And then this time it just didn't really work out with having the baby and the other things we were doing and stuff, but would definitely recommend checking out some sumo wrestling if you can. Another popular thing is Mario Kart tours. So basically you sign up for these tours and you get to like dress up as your favorite Mario Kart character and then you do a tour through areas. These are really popular in Tokyo in Akihabara. I think that's where a lot of them start. The reason we weren't able to do this, well, one, having an infant, but the other thing is you do need an international driver's license. Yeah, I looked in Osaka to see if we could maybe do it, and yeah, we didn't have the right type of driver's license. You have to have the driver's license that you need to rent a car, at least through the tour companies I looked, but double check this, but it looks really cool. I remember the first time I saw it, we were in, I think, Akihabara with our friend Becky on our first trip, and I was like, what is this? Because they're literally just driving on the road with the cars. It's like super cool.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing we haven't engaged with so much is the nightlife. Obviously, big city like Tokyo has some incredible, cool nightlife stuff going on. There's lots of famous like rooftop bars. The New York bar, which is kind of famous from Lost in Translation, is an actual place you can go, you can visit. And there's, I know, another couple of other like sky bars. And then some cool kind of neighborhoods for nightlife. We mentioned Shimakitazawa. It has like all these like cool one-off little bars. There's like izakayas, but so much cool, interesting nightlife as well. Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, I don't really know why we didn't engage a lot with the nightlife the first time we were in Tokyo. I feel
it's like a finance concern and just
not having nice clothes with us. Yeah, being more like backpacker style, I think. And then I think one thing is like you kind of got to budget your energy a little bit. And we were just like going hard from like 8 a.m. and by like 10 p.m. we're like, we got to go home.
Yeah. I think that was partially the case.
And then this time traveling with an infant, we did a lot of like early dinners, eating dinner before everyone else and then going to bed early because that's just the chapter of life we're in now. But yeah, would definitely recommend checking out some of the nightlife. One of the friends that we were in Tokyo with at the same time this year, she was doing a lot of the nightlife and it just sounded really awesome, really amazing, cool experience. And again, one of the great things about being in Japan is that it's safe. So you can go out with some less concerns that you might have in other big cities around the world.
For sure. So yeah, that is our like top things to do in Tokyo list. Really cool city. One of our favorite places. Definitely a place we want to go back to again. And just one of those places where just like you get there and you can go walking in any direction, stop at a 7-Eleven, find a cool cafe, like so much cool stuff to do. So definitely goes way, way beyond this list. But yeah, really awesome city.
Yeah, for sure. And if you guys have any questions, comments, anything you think we should add to the list, make sure you reach out. We always love hearing from you guys. And yeah, thanks for following along with this Japan series. We'll be back to other content soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you want more, make sure to check out The World Wanders Insider, available on Patreon at patreon.com/theworldwanderers.
For show notes, head over to theworldwanderers.com. Find us on social media at The World Wanderers Podcast and join the private Facebook community at World Wanderers, a community for travelers.
You can always get in touch with us at info@theworldwanderers.com. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps us find new listeners.
See you next time.